Evening. Welcome to this evening's edition of the Richard Urban Show. I'm your host, Richard Urban, coming to historic Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. Tonight, we're very happy to have Jody Murphy on. He's a Democratic candidate for governor. So please introduce yourself.
Well, thank you for having me, first of all. I really appreciate it. My name is Jody Murphy. I'm a Democratic candidate for governor, first time running for office. Live in Wood County, Parkersburg, West Virginia. I've been here 17 years, and I'm a native of Fayette County. Married for 23 years, wife, 3 boys, 4 cats. I currently work for FedEx. Before that, I worked for the Pleasants County Chamber of Commerce and the Pleasants County Development Authority. And I was a newspaper reporter for about almost 15 years, working in Beckley and Parkersburg.
Okay, cool. That's good. All right. So could you tell us like the 3 of your main like campaign or platform points you're running on?
Sure. My big 3, and this may not apply as much to your area, to Harpers Ferry, to the Eastern Panhandle, but my main platform, my number 1 goal is to recruit and retain residents. You know, I tell folks all the time, I'm running because I want my children and my children's children to live in West Virginia. I don't want to go to North Carolina to visit my kids. You know, most of the state has been losing population since the 1950s. We are hemorrhaging population. And the population that we're losing is our youngest, our best, our brightest, and our working tax-paying population. So I want to recruit and retain those people. We need to grow our tax base. You know, I tell people we need more taxpayers, not more taxes. So that's really my biggest platform. And my second is to diversify the economy, grow and diversify the economy. And I know those are big things. Those are things that a lot of people have been saying for decades of governorship. But I believe I can do it because I've done it. I did it in Pleasants County. I've done it in the Mid-Ohio Valley.
Okay. So, yeah, interesting. Well, since you mentioned the growing like the population, what are your ideas on that? How would you go about that?
Well, when we were in Pleasants County with the Chamber of Commerce, we did a promotion where we would pay people to live in Pleasants County. We paid folks $2,000 to build or buy a home in Pleasants County. It was essentially a rebate on their first year property taxes, but we cut them a check. If anyone built or bought a home in Pleasants County, we gave them $2,000. You know, and you can look at it as a coupon. And maybe they moved to Pleasants County, maybe they didn't, but I think it gave Pleasants County an edge to look at over their neighbors, Tyler County, Ritchie County, and even Wood County. I think they got to look at it. You know, so I want to do that. I want to create entrepreneurship zones in smaller towns, in smaller areas that used to be really, prosperous. You know, I'd like to create, entrepreneurship zones. I want to create income tax-free retirement communities. I think that there are seniors that don't want to retire to Florida. I think there are folks in the Rust Belt who will find it's cheaper to retire to West Virginia, where there are still 4 seasons. And we can take places like Welch in the deep southern part of the state of West Virginia and refurbish it in town, creating infrastructure, creating better walkways, sidewalks, mobilities, and creating different sizes and types of assisted living facilities, and around which will spring up additional restaurants, drugstores, shops and centers that cater to senior living.
How would they become income tax free? Wouldn't that have to be passed by the legislature or something?
It would. It would have to be approved by the legislature as well as the county. So it would start as, I'd like to do it as a pilot program to see if that's something that we can attract. But I think if it's income tax free, as you know, Tennessee and Florida are both income tax free states, and that's where folks like to go. So I'd like to try it as a pilot program.
Okay. All right. One thing I'm interested and passionate about is like the issue of, that we have a policy of no school, no vaccinations. And the reason I'm mentioning at this stage of the interview is that, I know a bunch of parents who moved out of the state because of that. What's your stand on that? Is that a good policy? Like no school, no vaccinations, no exceptions, no religious exemptions, no personal exemptions? What do you think?
My wife's a family nurse practitioner. I'm a pretty big believer in vaccines.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, most states, or pretty much all states, have some requirements, but usually there's exemptions. So you don't think there should be any in West Virginia?
West Virginia is actually a pretty strong, I guess the state is pretty pro-vaccine as far as compared to other states. And yeah, I'm fairly happy with that. Pretty comfortable with it.
Okay, well, it's clear. All right. Now, one thing I noticed in another interview is that you were, I believe, wanted to make opioid use legal. How would that look? How would that work? Or is that correct?
Not exactly. I think I'm promoting the legalization, the full legalization of cannabis. The
Okay.
crazy cannabis, marijuana. The
Maybe I
full
read it
legalization.
wrong.
Yeah,
Okay,
of
go ahead.
cannabis. But what I'm believing, one is it would create industry. It would create growth, jobs in a separate industry. It would allow people to willingly, we would have people willingly doing tax money, paying us tax money. I wrote an op-ed in the Charleston Gazette called "A Reluctance to Tax the Willing." You know, if we legalize cannabis and marijuana, people will buy it, and we will collect tax money off of it. And I want to use that revenue stream. That's a new revenue stream. I want to use that to fix PEIA, and I also want to use it towards regular West Virginians' health care costs.
Okay. Yeah, well, I know the idea of legalizing marijuana has gained much more traction. I guess I don't know if I misread that. It was in something on Channel 8 News or something
Oh
of
Lord,
yours.
I hope they didn't misquote me. Yeah.
Maybe check that interview. I could have that's what I thought it said, but I mean I could be mistaken. So yeah, maybe check that out because I read, wow, how would that look? I don't know, but maybe I misread it. Okay, well,
Now, let me. I'll tell you what. Let me clarify, and maybe this will clarify. I do want the decriminalization of the possession of opioids.
okay,
I want
maybe.
to. I want to decriminalize that. You know, I don't think we should be prosecuting and criminalizing folks that are self-harming. You know, our jails are overrun with people that are users, that are addicts, and I'm not sure that punishment is the crime. You know, I'm not sure sending them to jail is the right punishment.
I get it. So if it's decriminalized, then it would still be a misdemeanor, or that's, I guess I misread it. Explain how that would look. I'm sorry.
Well, again, you're basically, I guess maybe you are, you're just decriminalizing use and possession of 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 of, of drugs. I mean, you know, if you OD on heroin and they're doing Narcan, they want to arrest you and charge you with drug possession. And if you look in your paper, our paper here, the News and Sentinel, and many of the county papers, 80 to 90% of the arrests are drug related. And if we decriminalize drug use and drug possession, those numbers drop. Now we still haven't fixed the problem, but we're not devoting as many resources, many state government resources, taxpayer resources to the criminal prosecution, and we can use that money instead for treatment, and of course, I'm more of a proponent of I guess drug abstinence, supercharged, just say no. Obviously we've got to do a better job of educating and informing folks that opioids, addiction, drug use is a bad path to start down.
Right. Yeah.
I hope that better clarifies some of, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'd agree with that. I mean, yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, so as far as education, like, I was reading or noticed you were saying that, we should possibly have free college education. And another point I noticed was I know recently a bill added very slowly charter schools, like 1 or 2 or 3, but you said no charter school. So I guess short question is, why no charter schools? Why is that bad? And also the free education, like, how would that look? Does everybody need college, or how would you pay for it?
Okay. Well, one, with charter schools, my biggest fear with charter schools is it takes money away, public money from public education. And you have places that cannot afford that. Calhoun County, for instance, if there was a charter school, you would decimate the public school education in Calhoun County. That's my biggest concern with charter schools, is it takes money, public money, from public education. Now, what I'm proposing as far as post-secondary, what I'm proposing is the opportunities for free post-secondary education. And what that means is, let's say Berkeley County, or even Harpers Ferry, voters would go to voters and give them the opportunity to pass a post-secondary school levy, like a school bond or a library levy, in which they agree to be taxed as a group. And that money is set aside, that tax money is set aside to provide free post-secondary educational opportunities for their residents' children. And that can be different. That could be a number of things. It's pretty open-ended. As you pointed out, not everybody needs to go to college or needs a 4-year degree. But I'm sure anybody that graduates high school to get a decent job, they need something more than a high school diploma. This will help that. Generations ago, we decided we were going to pay for our kids to attend school for education. We started elementary. We started high schools. Well, that doesn't cut it anymore. So we have to do more. So I'm proposing the opportunities for free post-secondary education that your county can provide, that your region can provide, or your town can provide. And could you imagine if Harpers Ferry is one of the first places in the state of West Virginia or the Eastern Seaboard that's going to send their residents' children for post-secondary educational opportunities for them taxpayers? And again, that could be anything. It could be a 4-year degree, or it could be a 2-year degree, or it could be a welding certificate or a chemical operator's license. But it would be open-ended, up to, I guess, to the voters to decide how they would word that, how that would work out.
Well, right. Generally, people, as the property taxes go, I guess, the great majority for local school. So already it's hard to see how people would want to pay twice as much or something.
Well,
but anyway.
I think it depends. Again, you're getting a little more bang for your buck here. I mean, you're not sending your kids to high school. You're sending your kids to to get a chemical operator's license, or to get a welding certificate, or to get a 4-year, 2-year degree. So I think, one, you're promising them a little more bang for their buck. And you're right. It's usually about anywhere from 70 to 77% of our property taxes go towards public education, the county educational systems. But again, I think you're getting more bang for your buck. And this may not be something everybody in the state wants to do, but I think I can convince some region in the state of West Virginia to give this a try, to increase, again, this is a tool to recruit and retain residents.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting idea about that. What do you think, like you're talking about, how regulations are in taxes, like I know something that's discussed often is like the business inventory tax, and with other candidates also, we're discussing like there's a personal income tax, personal property tax, business inventory tax. What's your opinion on those 3 taxes? Are they good, bad, indifferent?
Well, one, businesses are not paying enough. They're not paying their fair share. You and I, working tax-paying West Virginians, we make up 75% of the state's annual budget. 75% of the state's $4.5 billion budget is funded on you and I, on our backs. Not on business, not through business inventory tax, not through severance taxes. Those make up less than 12% of the state's annual budget. Less than 12% of that. So businesses need to pay their fair share. They need to pay a little more. And we need to be charging a lot more in severance tax. We need to raise our severance tax. I don't support a repeal of business and inventory taxes. I don't support lowering severance taxes.
For those who are, I'm sorry, the severance tax. Can you, if those who aren't familiar with it, explain the severance tax?
Severance tax is tax money taken on exports, particularly coal, oil, natural gas, timber. Any of our raw materials that leave the state of West Virginia are subject to a severance tax. Okay. And I think we only charge about 1 to 2% on severance taxes, depending on the export that we're talking about. Coal is a big one. They just lowered the export tax on coal, the severance tax on coal here recently.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, I can kind of see what you're saying there. So I noticed that, and some things like you mentioned about regulations, I was seeing maybe in that interview or somewhere. So you wanted to maybe reduce the size of government or not? I mean, can you talk a little about that and regulation?
Sure. I don't know about increasing regulations, but the size of the West Virginia DHHR is it's 2 to 3 times larger than any other entity in the state of West Virginia, any other entity in state government. It is incredibly huge, and we provide a ton of services through it to an array of people, an array of services. And I guess I look at reducing the size of government. Again, and it goes back to our tax base. As people continue to leave, our working tax-paying West Virginians continue to leave, the folks who stay, our tax base continues, our tax burden continues to grow. And it's not going to get cheaper anytime soon because costs go up. The cost of asphalt and concrete and construction material goes up every year. Teachers want a raise. They get the building cost of living raise, and they want additional raises yearly. Well, to pay for that, they have to raise our taxes. And again, as we lose population, our tax burden continues to grow. So yeah, I want to look at, if I can't recruit and retain, maybe we need to reduce the size of government as well and some of the services that we provide.
Right. Well, there's that old saying, there's never a dollar the government can't figure out how to spend. I mean, there's some truth in that,
I think you're right. There is some truth to that. Yes.
Yeah, that's true. One thing with the COVID-19 situation, so we see that the Governor Justice and a lot of governors have, put in a lot of mandates, lockdowns, and different restrictions. So do you feel that's violating constitutional rights, or you think it's just about right, or it's way overkill, or what's your opinion on that?
I think Governor Justice, I think he's doing pretty well. I think he's following I think he's following I think he's following the right advice. And I know there's a concern about that being a slippery slope with overstepping, the governor overstepping his powers. And, and I think that is certainly a valid complaint. And, if things prolong, I can certainly see that beginning to shift the other way. It's like, yes, you are overstepping your bounds. But I think at the time that we had the pandemic, that we were really, concerned about the unknown, I think they were taking a lot of good steps, a lot of steps in the right direction. And of course, now that the governor's easing some restrictions, I hope those work. I hope those are in play. But at the same time, we need to be listening to our experts. You need to be listening to what the CDC and these experts are telling us to make sure that we can avoid another, I guess, Spanish flu outbreak, pandemic. That's sort of those results.
I see. Well, I'm pretty opinionated that if you looked at any of my materials, that I err on the side of freedom. But the point is, that seems like there are a lot of restrictions. But anyway, I just wanted to get your viewpoint, on that issue. I think that is a really, a big issue about, constitutional freedoms and,
it is
rights.
You also have to keep in mind, this is very unique. I mean, this is literally a once in a lifetime event that's happened to us. They said this event happened at Woodstock in the 60s, but not to this degree. It's probably closer to the Spanish flu, which hasn't happened in anyone's lifetime. So I think a lot of this is kind of on unsteady ground. We're breaking some new ground here. So I think there's a lot of, stepping over the line, stepping back. There's going to be some give and take with that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's concern that some businesses may never reopen. Also, it's setting an awful precedent because, what are the conditions for the future, for these things to happen again, could.
And I think those are valid concerns. And we have small businesses that have closed. We had a local rental place. They shut their doors and they're building, they sold all their property, the buildings for sale. They've been in operation since the 70s. And now that rental place is gone. So yeah, it is.
You think that was related? Just now they did that, you mean?
They closed about 4 weeks ago. I mean, it was shortly after the COVID. I mean, they closed due to the economic conditions.
Wow. Well, right. That's a really good point. If you can't pay your employees, and I don't know. I mean, I do know. I have. I think there's a lot of problems with that. Okay. So attracting new residents to the state. Do you have any other? You mentioned, I think, about. Yeah. How would you were you talking about, or tell us how would you try to diversify? The economic base, maybe just to run over that a little bit more.
Sure. One of the proposals I have is to give land away. I want to give land away to attract business and industry. There's a I think it's an 800-acre site on the Kanawha-Boone County line called Rock Creek. It's about 800 acres, 700 acres. There's been nothing put on, nothing. Well, what if we offered to give away 100 acres? If you recall, Amazon recently, they put out an RFP for their Amazon 2 headquarters.
The one that was going to be in New York. I'm not sure if that's where it is.
Yes. No, it didn't. It got killed. AOC killed that deal. She killed it. However, every major metropolitan city in the country bid on this. They all bid on the Amazon headquarters. So what if we could reverse engineer that? What if I've got 100 acres in Kanawha County that I want to give away for business and industrial use. And we say, hey, what do you have? What's your proposal? If we give you 100 acres, what can you put on there for us? And I want to see what we attract. You know, and one, we may not like what we attract, but two, we're going to get, hopefully we're going to get something. And two, we're going to get people that we know are looking. We're going to get companies that we know are looking to move, which are also going to be leads to attract other areas. But I want to take development sites, industrial parks. You know, several counties have industrial parks that haven't had anything new built on them in 10 to 25 years. Well, what if they gave away 5, 10, 15 acres to try and track something? You know, again,
Yeah.
we have to do things differently.
I think transparency issue, as you probably know, there's a kind of brouhaha over here over the Rockwool thing because it wasn't transparent at all. We used to have like a residential light rail area became the Rockwool site. Basically, nobody knew about it until they read it was done. So we, you know, around here, most people think, or at least some people, okay, I think that was not at all transparent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was, you know, I worked in newspapers. I spent 12 years, I covered state government. I covered city government every day, county government. I'm a big believer in transparency, you know, and I know some people don't like, you know, there may not be things that you want out to the public, but I think they need to know. And I'm a big believer in transparency and doing things above board and being open and honest and having discussions. You know, I like to think that most people will have some common sense and can have a reasonable approach to things.
Okay. All right. Well, kind of to wrap up, how would you like, or near wrapping up, differentiate yourself from your opponents? You have like 4 opponents on the, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's right. On the Democratic ticket, you know, what would differentiate you from those other opponents?
Well, what differentiates me from most of those opponents is those guys have money. You know, I'm the guy that nobody's heard of. However, I'm the fellow with the ideas that have actually done things. I've done economic development. I helped save the coal-fired power plant in Pleasant County. I helped rebuild a grocery store in Pleasant County to keep it from becoming a food desert. I chaired and founded the Mid-Ohio Valley Launchpad Competition, which was a new business and entrepreneur pitch contest. In 3 years, we helped over 80 businesses, small businesses, either grow, expand, or start up. I put 5 small businesses in a little town of St. Mary's, West Virginia, without spending a dime of government money, just by getting them. I recruited a restaurant, a great restaurant. It's called the Boxcar. I recruited a restaurant to St. Mary's, West Virginia, off of Craigslist. Got the guy to start from nothing. He start from nothing. Got him in touch with the building owners, got him in touch with remodelers, and he launched a restaurant. And it's not a success because of me. It's a success because of Christian. He's a heck of a restaurateur, knows and a great chef. But it's in St. Mary's because of me. You know, these when I tell people that I can recruit and retain and diversify the economy, I know that because I've done it.
You mean you advertised on Craigslist for that restaurant placement?
I said, hey, I forget the ad, but I ran an ad in I forget where, several high priority zip codes with like Chicago, Cook County, New Jersey, where taxes were higher, you know, a lot higher. I said, hey, we've got space, you know, and we need a restaurant. Our only sit down restaurant was closing. And I said, we need a restaurant. You know, if you're interested, contact me. And
Okay.
I had a guy who moved from Texas, and he reached out to me, and we got the Boxcar, you know, shortly thereafter.
All right, that's pretty cool. Okay, well, good. Well, yeah. So, in anything else you'd like to say in concluding about your campaign?
Well, I've got a whole lot of ideas, a little blog post on my website, Murphy and the number 4, westvirginia.com. I'm on Facebook. My cell number is 304-991-2350. If anybody has any questions, I'm available to talk when I'm not at work. I try and respond to emails. You know, I'm pretty open.
I like that. I like that. Absolutely. All right. Well, I appreciate your time today. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And we'll definitely have this up on video and podcast. So I hope a lot of people will watch and, you know, make informed decisions coming up in the primary on June 9th. And we'll get out and vote.
I hope they make informed decisions as well. And I really appreciate you having me. Thank you very much.
Okay. So I'm your host, Richard Urban, coming to you from historic Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. Thank you for watching. And we'll see you next time. Good evening.